I'll call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Carver Select Board for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the Select Board page on our website for a listing and application. If we could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Hoffman, would you be kind enough to read our community prayer?
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we have been allowed to serve, that may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving and our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. The first item on our agenda this evening is citizens' participation. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the board? Seeing none. The next item is a request for approval of town auction by the treasurer collector for the following parcels under the Select Board custodianship. Map 62, Lot 167A, Map 80, Lot 70A, and Map 124, Lot 15A. And
Mr. Chair, we have the treasurer tax collector here with us. Maybe she would.
Great. Would you like to speak up? Sorry, I didn't notice you back there. Thank you.
Hi, Kathy Kay, Treasurer Collector. First, just one correction. There is a typo, my fault. It's map 80, lot 7, not lot 70. And I brought this to your attention because I received a phone call the other day from an abutter of map 124, lot 15. And the abutter actually owns all the land surrounding this parcel, and he's looking to buy it because they're doing some changes to the land and they need ownership of that parcel. And I was able to determine that I did not, as treasurer, have custodianship of this parcel, but found in the town minutes, annual town meeting of April 25th, 2015, Article 13, a land transfer of this parcel and the other two parcels, map 62, lot 167A and 80-7-0, to the Select Board for purposes of sale. So since I am holding an auction on December 1st for a few other parcels under my custodianship, I wanted to see if I could get permission from the Select Board to offer these parcels up for auction.
Okay. Thoughts from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Ewens.
Ms. Kay, my question, as you know already, was about the Meadow Street property, because on the assessor's card it says per conservation, all wetlands. And so
that's fine. I don't, if it's for conservation, I have no problem with not offering it for auction as it is. Since it's limited time, we're really just focusing now on wanting to offer map 124-15 since there is interest in purchasing that parcel.
Okay. So, and also map 62, lot 167A?
Yeah, that would probably be offered for auction later.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm suggesting is for map 80, lot 7, we might want to write a town meeting article, just transfer the care and custody from Select Board to conservation.
Yep, absolutely fine.
Okay. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Bogart?
Sure. As you can see, Bob is not here tonight, and he had asked me to say a few things on his behalf. So as far as this item goes, he is not in favor of selling off the Meadow Street or the Oak Street property. The Meadow Street, it's great that it's a conservation thing, so maybe that just takes any other use off the table. That's great. So it's probably a moot point. He thought it might be an interesting idea to evaluate it for affordable housing. But if it's conservation-based, great. So
Yeah.
then it's ours.
But
And
you
then-
know, that's a good point. The Oak Street one might be perfect for affordable housing.
And then his thought there too, was one of the options could be a playground. He said he thought it looked unbuildable, but he thought it would be a good idea for the town to hold on to that now to explore other purposes too. But if the only one on the books is the shoestring, I think that's great, and I have no comments from him. So
I agree.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Is there a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we put up for auction map 124, lot 15-0.
Only, correct? Just that one?
Well, yes, because the map 62, lot 167A is Oak Street, and it is one of those spots that would probably be perfect for affordable housing.
I agree. I just wanted to be
Yeah.
clear, that's all. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, the next item on our agenda tonight is the Upland Ale DBA Brewery 44 requesting a change in hours.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Johnson, co-owner of Brewery 44 Upland Ale Company. So we are requesting currently a change in hours. Our hours right now are our open hours are 4 to 8 on Thursday, 3 to 10 on Saturday, on Friday, 3 to 10 on Saturday, and 12 to 5 on Sunday. What we're requesting is the ability to have additional hours when needed. We have a lot of requests for our event room now. For instance, we have bereavement events, we have corporate events. We have people that are looking to rent the space on a Monday or Tuesday for these type of things. So we'd like to have the flexibility to be able to offer that. The other thing is that we're looking at doing a few more things during the week that would require us to be open a little bit later. For instance, we want to start running trivia nights, and that would require us to be open generally to about 9 o'clock. And we're also looking at doing some indoor cornhole leagues this winter. You know, there's also sporting events that are coming up. We have a lot of people that come into the brewery now to watch the Bruins, to watch some of the other big sporting events, and be helpful if we would actually be open, you know, for the end of the game sometimes. I hate to kick people out in the middle of a good game. The extension of the hours is just for our flexibility to offer these periodically. We don't anticipate changing our current hours much from what they currently are, but we want to have that flexibility going forth.
Questions from the board?
Would that be open till 9 every 7 days?
No. On Thursdays, right now we plan on being open till 9. Wednesdays, we were open on Wednesdays. We closed Wednesdays. We might start opening on Wednesdays this winter, having some sort of game nights or something like that, which would be open till 9 on like a Wednesday. I don't anticipate us ever being open, till midnight. When we were initially opened, we were open till midnight just because demand was there, and then we scaled that back. So now the latest that we're open is Saturdays till 10, Friday till 10. Occasionally we'll go to 10:30, like if we have a big event. We've done a number of benefits, and we've had some people that, stragglers and, and all that, but places are generally cleared out by 10:30, 11 o'clock at the latest.
And you don't want to be open till 9 on Monday?
9 on Monday? We like the flexibility to have that, but I don't anticipate us ever being open on Mondays and Tuesdays regularly. Those are the days, honestly, that we cook the beer. So that's the days that we, try to recoup our beer supply.
Okay. So basically you're saying until 9 on Wednesday and Thursday?
Yeah, 9, would be helpful, maybe even a little later. I mean, again, if to have that flexibility, if there's a good sporting event on, we've got the Olympics coming up, we've got the World Cup coming up. I know, for instance, we have Thanksgiving is coming up, and the Wednesday before Thanksgiving generally is a big night for people to go out. A lot of people come back to town, so we're one of the few places I think that can accommodate a decent-sized crowd in town.
Anything else? Ms. Bogart?
If Bob were here, he would want me to tell you that he is in favor of extending the hours. And I love that a business is coming back to ask for more hours because they're that successful. So this, to me, this is awesome and congratulations. I remember when you guys came before us when you were opening.
Mhm.
So this is like best case scenario. So congratulations and thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you. The town and the community has been extremely welcoming. We've made dozens of friends. We've, I think one of the best things that we've done is we've held a number of charity events. I know in September we raised $15,000 from multiple charities, which is, you know, part of our mission is to give back to the communities, and we hope to, you know, continue that. So thank you.
This is fantastic.
Anything else? I guess the only question I would have, and perhaps either you, sir, or Mr. LaFawn, you could clear this up. Was there an outstanding sign issue with the planning board? Has that been resolved?
It's on the way to being resolved. We're working with our landlord right now. We have the space available. He's given us to where we can add that sign, and we have to order that sign and get that sign up and going. But that's, yeah, it took us a little while to get the landlord down there to take a look and be able, because right now the way that the sign dispute is that there's no more room on the structure to hold our sign, so we had to put our sign sideways as opposed to across. So what we've done, we had the landlord finally come a couple weeks ago and figured out that we can take off where it says Silo Marketplace, move that up, and place our sign above there. So that's the resolution that we've come up with the landlord, and so we're in the process now of ordering the sign that'll fit that space.
And has that been approved by the planning board?
That's what they requested, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they requested that we remove the sign that goes, I guess, vertical and
Yeah.
go more of the horizontal along with everybody else.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so I guess the only suggestion I would make is if the board is in favor, that we make a motion conditional upon the planning board being able to sign off on the sign issue.
Right.
Mr. LaFawn.
Or you might want to, the building commissioner as the zoning
Fine,
enforcement
yeah.
officer.
That's a good idea.
Either one.
I'll make a motion to approve, conditional on the approval of the building commissioner.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, sir.
great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda this evening is to set deadlines for annual town meeting warrant articles and annual town reports. And I asked Sue Moquin, our finance director, to join us for the meeting tonight in case the board has any questions on the budgeting process or how that might impact a town meeting date. So, Ms. Moquin, would you like to step up to the microphone just in case somebody has questions? I asked Mrs. Weston to do a little research earlier on dates that we set for warrant articles earlier, and although last year was very late. Normally we've set deadlines anywhere between December 6th and December 20th. So we may want to consider a date somewhere in that time range. Thoughts from the board?
I think December 20th is the better date. Just December, what'd you say the other one? December 2nd?
6th.
Yeah, in the past it's been between December 6th and December 20th.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Personally, I would prefer December 20th. It just gives department heads more time to, and whoever else is doing an article, to get it
Okay.
done.
Let me just check my calendar quickly to see what day of the week December
Sure. Mm-hmm.
20th is. So December 20th is a Monday. So we could go with that, or if you felt perhaps end of business Friday would be a better date, we could go with December 17th,
Oh.
whatever the board feels appropriate.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Mrs. Weston.
I listed out in your email the dates. That Friday is Christmas, the 25th.
I'm sorry, Rick, could you?
Christmas is on.
We're having trouble hearing Mrs.
Yeah,
Weston.
sorry.
It's Friday.
She's just questioning the day that Christmas
Yeah,
is.
Christmas is on Saturday, but,
But it's, sorry, it's.
no, I'm sorry, no, that's right. That's right, the 24th
Okay, yeah.
is the last day, right, okay.
Yeah, Christmas is Sunday the 25th. Yeah, so
Right.
Sunday, so.
So if we get the warrant articles in on Monday, then everyone can relax for the holiday.
Or up to
Okay.
Wednesday.
I can't hear you, Mrs. Weston.
Yeah, you know, at least, at the latest, the 22nd.
Yeah, could we perhaps turn down some of that? I think that may be some background noise.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, do we haven't set a date for town meeting, right?
We have not. Nope, that's going to be in the agenda this evening as well.
Okay, so then traditionally, are warrants closed that far? And assuming the town meeting's going to be in April, is there a reason that they close that far in advance?
Yes, because we have to do a lot of research on them. We have to send them off to town council. We have to review them. So there's a lot of things that go into those warrant articles prior to town meeting.
Okay.
And Mr. LaFawn, perhaps
Yeah,
you
no,
can speak on that a
just
little more.
because people submit articles doesn't mean the board is necessarily gonna put them on the warrant.
Right.
Right.
So there's, you know, an internal review to make sure, you know, administratively, things have to be put together. A draft warrant has to be put together for the board.
Right.
The board has to review it. There has to be some research that goes into those articles. Ultimately, the board will decide what articles remain. They do have to go to town council for review, and then we have to, for those items that remain on the warrant, we have to draft motions. That happens usually in conjunction or with the advice of town council. Then the warrant has to be posted, 7 days in advance as a minimum. That's pretty late, even though that meets the legal requirement. I think having the warrant posted several weeks in advance is the goal. So the time goes by pretty quickly.
So those 3 to 4-ish months are used.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Because then also, I mean, we're not the only board, so there are other boards submitting articles, so if they get a comment from town
Yeah.
council, then they have to go and revise or whatever. And then the explanations have to be written, the informational summaries, so.
And is that the petition articles too? Have that same December deadline?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we making it the 20th?
Would you like to make that motion?
Sure. I make a motion that we set the deadline for town meeting warrant articles, including petition articles, to be Monday, December 20th, 2021.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Do we need a time?
How about close of
Close
business,
of business.
4 p.m.?
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous.
Now,
And
what about annual town reports?
that's right. So
January 31.
if we look,
January 31.
Ms. Weston is saying January 31.
For annual town report?
Correct. Yes.
okay. All right, is that a motion?
I'll make that motion that we set the deadline for annual town reports to be
Okay.
January 31st, 2021.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. And I think perhaps I am mistaken when I spoke to you earlier, Ms. Bogart. I don't believe there's anything on the warrant this evening to set a date for town meeting. I thought when I looked at it previously there was, but looking at it now, I don't see that. So we
Okay.
will be doing that at a future meeting because I don't see that on tonight's agenda. So, Ms. Moquin, I guess that's it. I guess the board has no questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
So, the next item on our agenda is a discussion and possible vote. We have a number of things to deal with tonight. I tried to put them in order. So the first thing is discussion and possible vote on an interim town administrator.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may?
It's yours.
To be. I've been worried about this for a long time, and I just wanted to run through a few things. to make sure that we know what we're getting ourselves into. So right now, as I see, the board is in the position of actually leaving the town unprotected right at the beginning of the budget season and going into town meeting. So there's a lot of things that happen, and they all depend on one another. November is when we set the tax rate, the tax split between commercial and residential, and then the tax rate gets set. The capital outlay process starts about now, and of course that's a 5-year plan, so a lot of discussion, moving parts. And as far as the tax rate and the tax split, we have no assessor. Our assessor resigned and went somewhere else. So we have no one to help us set that split, that rate. So if the tax rate, if we don't do the split, then the tax rate doesn't get set. And if the tax rate doesn't get set, the tax bills don't go out in January, and they're due February 1st. If we can't send out the tax bills, then we have a cash flow problem. And when we have a cash flow problem coming into a town meeting, that's a serious situation. What it means is we probably have to end up borrowing money. I'm not an expert on borrowing institutions, but I suspect they wouldn't be too happy lending to a municipal corporation with a tax flow problem. So the other issue, as I see it, is that our bylaw actually requires that we have the town administrator prepare the budget. It doesn't say the select board can prepare it. It doesn't say the finance committee can prepare it. It says the town administrator prepares the budget and presents it to the select board and then to the finance committee. So this really is what we're living in now is a very different situation from, say, the 70s, when we could count on the finance committee actually did the budget. Things were a little less complicated back then. And now the finance committee actually relies on staff. Okay, so as I said, we have no assessor. We have a brand new finance director who has not even been through one budget process with us. And we have a new school business manager. So it's kind of a really bad storm shaping up. The other point I want to make is this: the town is about a $40 million municipal corporation, and I'm pretty sure that in a private corporation, they would insist on having someone at the helm during a period of big turnovers, new big projects, multi-billion-dollar projects, and new staff. You can have 5 captains up here, but if you don't have a rudder, you're in trouble. My other concern is that I don't see finding an interim or a permanent town administrator happening very quickly. I don't think we're going to get much response during the holidays, which are almost upon us. And we've seen the responses from quite a few members of our screening committee saying that they're not ready to, they would like to do it, but they can't do it until January 1st. Then there's advertising, then there's the whole process, which I think one of the critiques from some of the board members last time was that it was rushed. So if we're talking, say, a 2-month process, so let's see, January, then there's the advertising. So say we advertise for 2 months, now we're looking at March, and town meeting is in April. So I'm really concerned if we let all this stuff happen. We have a cash flow problem, we have to borrow money, which is really, really a waste of the taxpayers' money, because they're going to have to pay it back. And if we're borrowing money because we did something that was completely unnecessary, that's just wrong to the taxpayers. And I think that if all these things happen, and right now the way I'm seeing it, they will. We're actually setting up our finance committee, our finance director for failure. We're setting up the town for failure, and we're setting up this board for failure. And so what I'd like to propose, if I may, I'm sorry to go on so long, is that I would like to volunteer to be one of the 2-member subcommittee, if you call it. I'd like to ask Mrs. Bogart to join us, if she will, and try to see if we can talk to the current interim town administrator, see if he's interested in staying with us through the fiscal year, 6 months. We are not going to be in good shape if we let this happen and as I said, have no rudder. So that's my motion, that we have a two-member subcommittee, discuss with Mr. LaFawn. We don't even know if he'd be willing at this point, but I think it's worth having a discussion.
And just so I'm clear, the motion is to have him just an extension of his interim contract.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion.
Thank you.
I guess where I
Please
stand
vote
on that is that it's an interesting idea, but that's really big, and I know I would want Bob here for his input on that. So I just think that's really important, and he did say that, I forgot this part, due to staffing issues at the hospital, he's unable to make it tonight, and he apologized to all of us, but that's kind of a big deal. So I would just like him to be here for that.
Well, I understand, but I did not know that he was not going to be here. I think we have an issue. I think the town has some serious problems that are coming down the road really fast, and I think we have to make some kind of decision. So that's my motion. You seconded it.
Yeah. Here's something I would a couple of things I would point out. First of all, if we're going to look for another interim town administrator, who not Mr. LaFawn, then Ms. Weston needs to place an ad for that so we can get this process moving. December 31st is coming very fast. We can't place the ad and then go back and tell people that apply, well, sorry, we've decided to continue with the present interim town administrator. We'd lose all credibility with other folks out there, especially if we go back and do that and then we don't come to a contract agreement. So I think if I'm understanding Sarah's motion correctly, all she's talking about is forming a subcommittee to see if we could come to an agreement, or if that committee could come to an agreement with Mr. LaFawn. That agreement would still have to come back to this board
Yes,
to be voted on. So Mr. Belbin would still have an opportunity to vote on that agreement. But the process has to start, and I would say that if the board voted favorably on your proposal, that subcommittee would probably have to meet with Mr. LaFawn and come back to this board with a recommendation by our next meeting. We don't have a lot of time to wait on this.
That's what I would like to do.
So again, Mr. Belbin would have an opportunity to vote on that proposal at the next meeting. It couldn't happen without this board approving whatever contract that subcommittee was able to reach.
The hopes would not be to come to a 6-month agreement. It would be to explore things and come back to this board. There would be no pressure or decision made to have some sort of extension made, right?
Well,
this is just kind of like exploratory, let's have discussions.
Yes, but it's an exploratory, let's have the discussions really soon.
Sure.
Because in addition, we don't know if Mr. LaFawn is even willing.
Well, and I had asked that at the last meeting. Does this does not preclude or eliminate the continuance of a new town administrator search, correct? Permanent TA search? This does not halt that process?
That's not in my motion. My motion doesn't include getting rid of a search committee or anything like that.
Your proposal is just to extend Mr. LaFawn's agreement.
It's to go into discussions with him to see if he'd be willing to
right.
And to what extent, if he is, to what extent.
And if he is to bring back some contract proposal to the board.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
And it doesn't preclude that search.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? Mr. Hoffman.
At our last meeting, didn't we ask Mrs. Weston to start the interim town administrator process?
We did. She explored that process. She's prepared an ad. I asked her to hold the ad till after this meeting because there are some things we have to decide as far as an interim town administrator. We have to decide if we want to advertise for an interim, whether it's going to be a full-time interim, a part-time interim, how we're gonna do that. We also have, as you'll see on our agenda, a discussion on the executive consultant. So there's a number of things that we need to decide as a board before she can place the ad. So she's got everything ready to go, and it's ready to go tomorrow, depending on what this board decides this evening. But that's where we're at with that.
And I just had a quick question too, that you had mentioned the tax rate, how with the split. Does that usually change every year
It can.
in history? I mean, in the last few years?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And of course, we don't set the rate, but in order for them to set the rate, we have to set the split.
Right. Okay.
Are there any further
So it's just discussion. The motion is just to have discussions.
That's correct. And to bring that back to the board.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
I love discussion.
All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
For discussion.
Opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed? Or
Opposed, yep.
3-1. All right. And I guess I would just request that you two, perhaps at the end of the night, set some times with Mr. LaFond, because we need to act on this at the next meeting.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so then, well, I guess we should probably wait on some discussions on the interim town administrator until we come back next week. I do want to point out to the board that we currently have under contract, I think it's my fiduciary responsibility to point out that we have under contract right now Mr. Mlynowski, our executive consultant, and he is under contract until April 16th, 2022. So, you know, as we explore our discussions on the interim town administrator, I'm not advocating anything here, I am just pointing out to the board that we have an executive consultant under contract until April 16th, 2022. And he certainly would be able to help us out with some things, certainly, if we were in need. So then we get to the Permanent Town Administrator Screening Committee. And so Mrs. Weston was kind enough to reach out to everybody after the last meeting, as we asked her, and explore who from the previous screening committee was interested in continuing to help us. And Mrs. Weston, I guess perhaps through Mr. LaFond, am I correct that the only person who indicated that they don't want to continue was Mr. Cole? Is that correct? Okay.
No, that's not me. You're not asking me.
No.
I'm asking, because she's
Okay, I just want to make sure that
Yeah, that's what I
It's a
think
little
it says
awkward.
in our list.
that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm that, that's all. So, right now we have 8 members willing to continue. We don't have a business community representative. So if the board is willing to continue with those 8 folks, then perhaps we'd want to do another perhaps ad for a business community rep, because it would be nice to have an odd number, I think, on the committee and not an even number. I think there were a number of respondents who indicated that they would not be available because of various commitments until January 1st. But in all honesty, I think if we're going to go placing ads for permanent town administrators, that I'm not sure that looking for those people during Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, that's that good of an idea anyway. So, just speaking for myself, I don't have a problem with holding off until January 1st to get that process going. But we do. How do folks feel about the current members of the screening committee?
Mr. Chair,
Ms.
I would like to ask the groups that we've included to resubmit a proposed name for appointment, and it can be the same person, but it does not have to be, and I think we should repost the application process for the at-large members. I think we should reopen it to everyone, because this has been such a large discussion with lots of opinions. So I think we should give people another shot if we're going back at shot 2. Then I would like us to interview the citizen candidates and then vote for each position, including the ones from the groups. Because in my opinion, there are some like seriously unresolved issues that have come before us that I think should be addressed before we confirm membership on this board. I know before I'm comfortable confirming everything, there are things that I would like us to address.
Okay.
So,
Any other thoughts from anyone?
I'm comfortable with having them resubmit. Although, I mean, actually, now that I think about it, maybe not. I mean, no offense, but it seems a little offensive because we appointed them in the first place. If there's, I mean, I think we should just vote on them. I don't think they need to come to us and prove themselves again. And if there's someone that someone doesn't want to vote for, then they can just not vote for that person.
Yeah, and I guess just speaking for myself, I think that these folks, we all felt comfortable with them when well, at least the majority of the board did. I don't remember what the exact votes were, but we took votes on all the at-large members. And these people, at this point, they know what goes into this process. They've done it. They've been through it. They know how much time it takes and how much effort it takes, and everyone except for Mr. Cole is willing to come back. So I actually would prefer to allow those members to come back, and again, I think we'll probably have to go out, obviously, and look for a business community representative, but aside from those, I'd be in favor of allowing those 8 members to continue. If for some reason, I think either one of the committee reps, the school committee, the finance committee, or the planning board rep, if they couldn't continue, then certainly those folks could appoint someone else. But I guess they've all indicated that they're willing to come back. And the at-large members, I thought they were well qualified before, and I'm happy with them now. So that's my thought.
I had a quick question as well. So the school committee rep, FinCom rep, planning board rep, and the public safety chiefs, those were all chosen by those groups.
They were.
Correct?
And we
Yes.
appointed them. Right.
Right. Okay. The only ones that we actually chose, well, you're right, we appointed those that were elected or selected by their representative.
Right, but I guess my point is that, yes, that's very true. Their peers selected them.
Right.
But we appointed the whole group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But the only ones that we actually chose in this room, the actual members, were the 3 at-large members.
And the business.
And the business community rep,
Mhm.
that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a motion? Well, I'm gonna, just to move this along a little bit, I'm gonna make a motion that we reappoint the 8 members of the screening committee who are willing to continue, and we authorize Mrs. Weston to replace the ad on the website looking for a business community representative.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So the only one we'd be looking for is the business community rep, because
Business
Mr.
community
Cole doesn't want
representative.
to
Yes.
come back.
Yes. Yeah. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
no.
No.
All right, so the motion fails. Is there another motion?
Okay, I will make a motion that we ask the school committee, finance committee, planning board, and public safety chiefs to submit proposed names for appointment to the screening committee, 1 each from school committee, finance committee, planning board, 2 public safety chiefs. And then we repost the application process looking for 3 at-large members and 1 community rep. We will interview the at-large and community reps, and then we will deal with all potential appointments. long motion. Did that make sense? Was that complete?
Yeah, I think it made sense. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion.
So, why do you feel, Mrs. Bogart, that we need to re-interview the school committee rep, the finance committee rep, the planning board rep, the 2 public safety chiefs, and the at-large members?
I don't necessarily think we need to re-interview them, but I think the process should be reopened. Did the school committee or any of those committees, or do they even know? Have they had discussions in their committees? Hey, they're reopening. Does anyone want to step up instead? Maybe they want to change. But it goes back to, there are some things that I think we as a board have not addressed that are unresolved. So I am uncomfortable.
And what are those things?
I am not sure we should talk about them because they were discussed in executive session.
I see.
So there are just things that we've not addressed yet that I know I'm not comfortable confirming an entire list without doing that. So.
Okay. So I can be clear, is your motion that if the school committee suggests somebody, or the finance committee, or the planning board, that we actually vote on those individuals that they recommend? So are they making the selection like they did last time they made the selection? Are you saying that instead of them making the selection, that they're going to suggest someone to the select board and we're going to vote on those representatives? Is that the motion?
Based on the things that we have dealt with as a board, yes.
Okay, I just want to be clear. So they're not, the school committee, they're not choosing the person to be on the screening committee.
And I'm not saying it's going to be a clean sweep.
Right, I understand, but they're not choosing somebody, they're choosing somebody to recommend to the select board, and we're going to vote on that individual.
Which is what Sarah had told Jim, was that they selected people, but we did the actual appointing.
Correct. But
So,
that's right. But they did the selection.
Right.
yeah, they're not
Okay.
applying to us.
Okay,
They'll submit
I just
the name,
want to be
but
clear, that's all.
yeah, just like what Sarah had said.
And
All right.
especially if we're not going to start till the first of the year. I understand, Sarah, what you're saying is, I mean, even if we come back and it's the same people, at least we gave each board and committee an opportunity to maybe change to discuss it and maybe change their representative. It could come back.
Yeah, no,
It's the same thing.
I understand. I do think there's going to be an issue with public safety chiefs because those are the only 2 that aren't appointed by the town administrator.
Right.
So that was how we ended up with
Right.
That's right, it
Kristen
pretty
and
much has to be.
Well, yeah, it has to be those 2. So I think we should make an exception in the motion for those because we can't have a public safety.
Would you be willing to amend your motion to exclude the 2 public safety chiefs from that?
Yeah, like
motion?
they're the only 2 that have the option.
They are.
They're the only 2 that are appointed by us rather than by the town administrator.
Okay, so then here's my question, because I believe they both responded that they can't start until January 1st.
That's correct.
Does that mean that we're not going to start? I know that we're comfortable starting them, but does that mean we can't do anything between now and January 1st if we allow them on?
Well,
Can we still make progress as a board, like hiring people?
There were a few others who couldn't do
Yep.
it until January 1st.
Yep, there were a
So-
few.
It's not just them.
There were a few others. I also think if we're going to do this, and the only thing I would suggest that perhaps you consider adding to your motion is a date that they have to get. If we're going to repost, we should have a date when everyone has to get their applications in by, so we can have an opportunity to vote on it. But yes, I think I don't think we're going to be able to get much accomplished between now and through the holidays. I think you get the screening committee set, and then you start up again as of January 1st or January 2nd. Give or take sometime in there around the first of the year. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't stop the process for the search for a town administrator, correct?
For an interim.
Of the process.
Well, the problem is that the screening committee has, quite a few of them have said they can't actually start until January 1st. So, I mean, I don't know, it would be up to them.
I'm just saying, like, the advertisements are, do we have to wait till the search committee is formed?
Well, they're the ones doing the advertisements, not
Okay.
us. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the whole idea,
Okay.
that process that you wanted to see, Jim, is for them to do it so it gets out of our hands. I think I have it right. So they would be the ones that would do it.
Okay.
I mean, it's up to them. If they want to meet without the people who can't be there till January 1st, that's up to them.
Well, then I would just say, for sake of ease, just leave it as is. Because if the public say, if those are the only two options, then they'll just write back and say these are our only two options. So I would just say, for sake of ease, just leave it as everybody resubmit a name. Because kind of to your point, maybe a committee will switch members and whoever couldn't start till January could start earlier. So let's just have everybody from a group resubmit a name, or in that case, two names, and kind of
All right.
expecting some of the same names.
All right, just give me a second so I can pull up a calendar here. Would it work for the board if we asked everyone to have their applications in by, say, close of business on November 15th? That's next Monday. That's a week and that's 13 days from now. So we can get a date set up to interview these folks?
Do each of these boards meet before then? School, finance, and planning?
I don't know.
So again, to my point, I don't think we need to interview the people who've already been interviewed. It would be if they, say, planning sent someone new, or the school
Well,
committee.
I guess I misunderstood. I thought you had wanted to interview everybody again.
Well, I mean, we don't need to interview school committee, finance, and planning, but we should
Okay.
give each of those boards a chance in their meeting. Hey guys, the screening committee is moving forward. Bruce, how do you, talk about it amongst them? Elaine sent the email to the screening committee members, but maybe those members have not discussed it with their board. Hey, Bruce, do you still want to be on it? Is anyone else interested instead? Just give them the courtesy of talking in their meetings.
Okay.
So in that case, Mr. Townsend, I think we need to move the date farther down because some of these boards don't meet all that often.
I think we do. But perhaps we could have an earlier date for the at-large members.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we could that is probably an interview process.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So would the board be okay with a date of again, I think it was, let me bring it back up, of November 15th for the at-large
For the
members?
at-large, yeah.
Would that work for you, Ms. Bogart?
Because is our next meeting the 16th?
Yes.
So then we would have, can we get that posted tomorrow morning for the at-large and stuff?
And
Yes.
also the business community rep should be included
Business
in that.
community rep
Yeah.
as well, correct. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, if we can get it posted, ASAP, because that's less than 2 weeks away.
Oh.
But
Is that something we can,
Thursday?
okay, you can post it on Thursday? That's fine. I still think that gives us enough chance
Okay.
to, is the board comfortable with that?
Right, so Mrs. Bogart, is your
Yeah.
motion to have the boards currently represented by the town administrator screening committee to just resubmit, either resubmit these names or resubmit new names,
yes,
and that the at-large and business community rep would be due by November 15th? And when would these boards need to have their names dressed? Because some of these boards, I don't know how often the finance committee meets.
Yes, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. So perhaps we could just ask them at their next meeting.
yeah, I don't know that we need a date for them. If we set a date of the 15th as the applications due for the at-large members, we still have to interview them. So if school committee, finance committee, and planning board don't meet by then, they still have time. So I think we just need to figure out when those three committees are meeting next and just make sure it gets put on their agendas.
Well, like I think what Sarah just said, we could just say at your next scheduled meeting.
Yes.
Can you?
Yeah, I think that
Right.
would work.
Great.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Weston, are you clear on that motion, the wording? Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. All right. So, then we get to the Permanent Town Administrator Screening Committee. We have a number of items here: the charge, guidelines, a timeline, and the possible use of a consultant. So, I guess the first thing we need. Well, are there any thoughts on the charge?
I think it should be the same as it was.
Same as it was before. I thought was worked pretty well before.
Mhm.
Is everyone comfortable with that? Ms. Bogart?
No, okay, well, per Bob, I'm just gonna read what he has given for the charge. Number 1, utilize professional staff or company. Number 2, advertise in print, online, professional journals, etc. Number 3, he would like all qualified applicants interviewed. If you meet the qualifications of the bylaw, you get interviewed. Number 4, to have 5 applicants given to the select board. Number 5, background checks on all applicants who meet the qualifications. Number 6, to include diverse applicants to the select board, and it must include a female and a person of color as long as they meet the bylaw requirement. Number 7, all applicants would be given an application number, and then each applicant number is given a reason for not being interviewed or choosing them to move forward to the select board, which I interpret as every applicant is given a number, and then if they don't move forward, we kind of get an applicant number 1 didn't move forward because of this reason. So those are his ideas, and then without having a copy of our charge in front of me, I know one that the 2 big ones that kind of jump out at me looking at his list, I really think we should use a recruiter this time, just like definitely use some sort of consultant. And I do like the idea of 5 applicants given to the select board, or 4 or 5, and saying something where if the committee does not have, you know, at least 3 applicants or so many to go to the select board to ask for an extension. I would hate to see us end up in another situation where we're only given 2 options, or they gave 3 but, you know, 1 pulled out.
Oh,
So,
all right. Any other thoughts from the board?
Well, I guess my feeling is that if we're going to have a screening committee, then we need to respect them and their decisions. And so there must have been a reason why we were only given 3. And it's out of anybody's hands if someone pulls out. I mean, you don't have control over that kind of thing. You know, to force them to give us 5, I think we should let them be the judge of that. I think up to 5 it was the way it was phrased before. And my understanding, talking with some of the members later, they were really trying to make it more than 3. We wouldn't want them to recommend someone that they really didn't think would be a good town administrator.
Right.
I wouldn't want them to. I mean, I think we should leave it up to 5 and then let it be at their discretion. They're being appointed to do this job. Let's let them do it.
I agree. I mean, there's a reason we appoint a screening committee, and I think if we're talking about that, might be a small change to the charge from last time, because I think the charge last time was up to 4. So if we're going to change it up to 5,
Right.
which I'm fine with, that is a small change. But I don't want to get into telling the screening committee who they do and do not have to send to us. That's the reason you have a screening committee, and that's what the bylaws call for. So I disagree with some of those items.
what about if we said, because up to 5 kind of bit us in the butt, okay, for not professional terms.
I can't hear you very well.
Okay. Saying up to 5 didn't really work out great last time because there's no minimum. So, you know, I'm seeing Bob would like to see 5 applicants given to us. What if we said the select board will interview between 3 and 5 candidates? So we have to interview at least 3 and up to 5. And it's kind of like what Sarah was saying. If they're struggling because they don't want to give us, you know, if they're not confident in who they're going to give us, then we're kind of put in that same situation where we want to be confident. So just saying up to 5, I see it leaving us in the same position we just had. So,
But we have no control as a select board, or anyone in town has no control over who is and who's not going to apply for the position. I mean, they sent us people that they thought met the qualifications. That if someone doesn't meet the qualifications, I don't know why we would interview them. I personally would not want to be in a situation where I'm telling a screening committee that, hey guys, you have to come up with 5 people. If you only have 3 that are qualified, find 2 more and send them to us. I don't know why we would want to interview people that the screening committee doesn't feel are qualified, just because they have to meet some arbitrary number, whether it's 4 or 5 or 8. I don't.
Yeah,
To me, I don't agree with that.
We want somebody competent to help us run this town. Not somebody because they were just that extra number. I mean, that's my position.
so what about 3 to 5? Because to me, 3 is not unreasonable, but we must have 3 to interview. So if I know we're not in control of who drops out, but I think it's important that we have at least 3. So they can set 3 to 5 to us, but we must interview at least 3.
I guess for myself, again, and they did come back to us and ask us to amend this language last time in the charge, and I think it was unanimous. I'm comfortable with the up to language. I just don't feel comfortable telling a board or a committee that they have to send us a certain number of people if they just don't feel those people are qualified. That's all. I want to interview as many as we can, but I want them to be qualified applicants and not just applicants that are being sent to us because they have to meet some arbitrary numbers. I'm not in favor of a minimum number of people personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I see your point, Jen, on that. But also, like Sarah had said, also, if there's only 2 that they feel really strongly about, then the other whatever number, I wouldn't want them just to throw 1 extra just to make it the minimum of 3. And again, like you said, we don't want to really, we're trying not to tell them what to do, and we're trusting these 9 people to do their job and to come forward. So I would tend to agree with you on that, the up to 5. Because I think we had a lot of discussion on that the last time as well.
I think we had a lot. And the one thing we know from
amendment.
Working with the screening committee last time is if there's something that we've asked them to do in the charge, and they feel if one reason or another that they need to change that, they can come back to us, and we'll consider it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is written in stone, and we can certainly work with them. I just, well, like I said, I just feel uncomfortable giving them a minimum number just to have to meet some.
That was a question I had. I don't know if Mark and Sarah, if you had talked to Mr. Walsh at all about any suggestions that he might have changed for the charge. That
I think the only one was the one that he came back and asked for it to be up to.
Okay.
I think it was 4 at the time.
So even after the process was done, kind of a wrap-up type thing, if he said, if we, not knowing we're going to do this again, but
I think so, and again, I think I just became aware that he was willing to come back. I think I wasn't, really, we just got this list. I wasn't even, I didn't even know who would consider coming back and who wouldn't come back. So it's certainly we could have those conversations and let them know that if there's something they need to change, come to us early in the process and we'll amend it. But I haven't had those discussions.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, so would you like a motion that we ask them to give us a list up to 5? Is that what you?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with up to 5 if the board is comfortable with that.
But no minimum. I think that's good. That's my motion.
Unranked is what?
Unranked.
Unranked.
Yeah, unranked list up to
Unranked.
5. But I think that was in the previous charge, that it was an unranked list up to. Okay. So, I'm sorry, Ms. Ewens, is your motion to reuse the previous charge with changing the wording from up to an unranked list from up to 4 to an unranked list up to 5?
Correct, with no minimum.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And forgive me, so what else was in the charge? Was it just the number?
It was a number of things. I'm trying to...
To find us a permanent town administrator.
No. Yeah, it referenced the bylaw, the town administrator bylaw, and set for certain guidelines someone had to meet to be considered.
Okay.
Yes. And those are all set out in the bylaw.
Right.
Certain minimum education, minimum years of experience, so on.
Okay. So the guideline timeline, that wasn't part of the charge. That's not what we're.
I think that the timeline was not. That would be different. Obviously, that's going to be different now because it's a different time.
Right. And also, I'm not sure that we can even fix a timeline right now, since we don't know. Are they gonna wait for their fellow committee members to come in on January 1st, or are they gonna meet without them, or what are they gonna? I mean, again, I don't want to be telling them what to do.
Well, no, but I do think at some point we're going to have to consider a timeline, because the process has to start at some point. I think we could wait till after the subcommittee's discussions at the end of next week's meeting, but I think at next week's meeting, thank you.
Thank you.
I think at next week's meeting we are going to have to consider some type of timeline, because the process does have to start, and we have to give them a date to get folks back to us.
Well, and I think just given the information they've given us, I would say that at the minimum it has to start by January 1st.
Yeah, I think so.
At the very least. Thank you. Thanks, Susan.
Thanks.
Oh, it does say up to 5.
When I'm done with it. Yeah.
Yes, it does. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So it looks like the only things that would change here are the dates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Which we'll have to discuss, I guess, at our next meeting.
Yes.
So you guys aren't willing to consider requiring using a consultant firm or a recruiter?
Well, I don't think we should. It didn't work out so well last time. Nobody wanted to consult with us.
Well, there are other companies that they didn't reach out to. I know of 3 at least that advertise in the Beacon that weren't even reached out to.
So there are consultants and there are consultants too. So, I mean, you want someone who's reliable.
I think we should talk about that at the next meeting after you folks come back and we decide what we do with those recommendations. I mean, personally, myself, I think we should use a consultant. I think that would be helpful to the screening committee, and I think we should use a consultant, whether it's the Collins Center or there are, as Ms. Bogart said, there's a number of them, and we might be able to leave which consultant they use up to the screening committee. But I think we need to use everything at our disposal to get the most qualified town administrator we can, and if that means that we use a consultant, then we use a consultant. I think we need to do everything possible to get the most qualified applicants to the interview process as we.
But Mr. Chair, just a quick point. That I think the issue was that the screening committee last time asked us to actually change the wording to say may use a consultant, because they were having trouble getting a consultant and getting people to respond.
They did, and I'm okay with I'm fine with the wording may.
Yeah.
Because you're right, they did have trouble getting, and if they decline to work for whatever reason with the screening committee, well then they don't work with the screening committee. I mean, we can't force them to do it, but I think they should certainly have the option. I want to give that screening committee as much help as we can to bring as many qualified applicants to this board as possible.
Okay, kind of jumping back on when you had said, does that mean we can't do anything for the process while the committee's being formed? Can we decide that we'd like to see a consultant used, and us as a board reach out to the consultant, send the whatever you or Shelby had sent last time and got? Do we have to wait for the screening committee to reach out to a consultant, or can we have one hired with expectations so when they have their first meeting, they already have this resource for them?
So that goes to the question of process that Jim had an issue with, I think, last time in 2020. If we want to have a screening committee be independent of this political body, then my suggestion is that we let them be independent of this political body and let them do their work. And if they want to try and hire a consultant, they're able. That's what the charge says. If they try and can't find one, then that's the way it is. But I think anytime we start meddling and interfering with what they're doing, it just kind of ruins the whole concept. I mean, why don't we just be the screening committee? You know, so there was a reason it was set up to be the way it is, and that's my interpretation.
And that's mine as well. I think there's a reason you appoint a screening committee, and that's to take the politics out of this whole process.
And I think the thing to keep in mind too is whoever the interim town administrator will be, that'll be probably, and again, just guessing, minimum 6 months for that person. So we'll have more time. Where I think we all thought that this last process, you know, they did a great job in that short timeline. So I know what you're saying with kind of what I had said earlier as well about trying to start this as soon as possible. But I also agree with what Sarah said. We're giving them a job to do. Let them do it 100% on their own. We don't have to be telling them what to do.
I guess, and I agree with most of those comments. The only thing I might disagree with is that if we need to bring in an interim, I hope it's not for a minimum of 6 months. I hope it's for a maximum of 6 months, because my hope would be that by the start of the fiscal year, July 1st, that we've made a decision and have a permanent town administrator right here. I think that's plenty of time to, if they start the process on January 1st, to have a hire in here. I mean, depending on who we hire and whether they work for somebody else and they have notice requirements, you know, maybe they don't get here till July 15th or whatever. But my goal would certainly be to have an interim for no more than 6 months. That's my goal. So
yeah, because permanent, if they're at jobs elsewhere, they usually have 60 to 90 days notice. So that's 3 months that we would have to wait.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. So just trying to bring us back to some votes here, so a vote on the charge. So the charge had a number of timeline of dates in here. Do we want to set those dates now and include them in the charge to the committee? That can always change depending on what happens in your discussions. I think we should probably try to get this as wrapped up as we can and move it forward. So on this one, we have the town administrator must meet and choose a chair by July 1st. Would the board feel comfortable that the town administrator screening committee, if most of them can't start this process till July 1st, that they
January 1st.
I'm sorry, January 1st, thank you.
That's right.
That they meet and choose a chair by January 14th? Would that be,
I'm okay with
that be reasonable? Would folks be okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. And then the town administrator may use a consultant. I wonder if do we want to keep the $16,000 in there, or do we want to consider changing that? What are the board's thoughts there?
You mean make it more?
Well, yeah, a little bit more. I thought it might be a little low. I wonder if the board might consider raising that amount to $20,000. Would that be the town administrator screening committee may use a consultant and may spend up to $20,000 for such purpose, and may return to the select board if more money is needed? Does that work for the committee?
So you suggest we should put a dollar amount in?
Well, if we want to. I mean, we could also not put a dollar amount in.
I'm just not sure as far as the difference between 16,000 and 20,000.
Yeah.
For that, is that?
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, and I'm okay with not putting a dollar amount in.
I'm just asking Elaine if that really makes a difference as far as.
Would the board prefer the wording? The town administrator screening committee may use a consultant for such purpose, that it could just be that.
And may return to the select board if money is needed.
Yes, well, obviously they're gonna need some money, so.
But you don't want to say more money if you haven't listed a sum.
Right, so you could have wording that the town administrative screening committee may use a consultant and come to the select board with a proposed budget, or something to that
Lane?
extent.
I think under 20,000 is reasonable. It's hard to put a dollar amount on that 16,000 because we don't know if their fees have increased or what they're going to charge for the service.
Okay.
But you think 20,000 is reasonable?
Definitely. Yeah.
Thoughts from the board on that? Board's okay with that? So the wording would be the town administrative screening committee may use a consultant and may spend up to $20,000 for such purpose and may return to the select board if more money is needed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we have the advertisement. The advertisement for town administrator must be placed no later than, well, if they meet on the 14th and choose a chair, would it be reasonable to place the ad a week after that, by January 21st?
Well, I think that's hard if they decide to use a consultant. If they're meeting on the 14th for the first time and decide to use a consultant,
Yeah, no,
are they going to be able to hire someone and work with that person?
no, that's a good point.
We gave them 3 weeks the last time. They had to choose a chair by July 1st, and they had to advertise it by July 23rd.
So what's 3 weeks from
Well, it would
January
be
14th?
February 7th, give or take.
Yeah.
So that the advertisement for town administrator must be placed no later than February 7th. Should we put in the wording, unless a consultant is used? Because I think if they use a consultant, the consultant usually does those ads. So
Right, and then lead time to sign a contract. That might take another meeting to vote on that
Oh,
as well.
contract with the consultant. That's correct, yeah.
So would that wording work for the board? The advertisement for town administrator must be placed no later than February 7th, 2022, unless a consultant is used?
Well, Elaine, Mrs. Weston is suggesting that if a consultant's used, we're going to have to sign a contract with that consultant, so that might delay that date. Is that what you were suggesting?
What you said
But
is correct.
But that's why,
Okay.
unless a consultant is used, so that
I
changes.
misunderstood.
Okay, no, that's fine. So then the next one, a review and receive all resumes. I think that's probably fine. Conduct interviews of selected candidates using questions established by the town administrative screening committee or the consultant prior to interviews. Reference and background checks to be done by the consultant or the town's human resources department. The town administrator screening committee must comply with the town administrator bylaw, chapter 3.
Of the town general bylaws.
Right, okay, I was just reading from the previous charge, but
I
that's
just want to
fine.
make sure we know what we're talking
Nope,
about.
that's fine. And then the town administrative screening committee may present up to 5 unranked finalists to the select board by, and that date.
Well, again, some of the board members had felt that it was too rushed last
Right.
time,
They did.
so
See, that's kind of where I was coming from, and I totally get the, let them do their job, but I do feel very strongly about the consultant. So that's kind of where I was at. If we got someone ready for them, then they could hit the ground running on January 1st, and then these dates would be stronger. I mean,
yeah, but I think we kind of agreed that we're going to let them do that.
Well, and the thing is, we did, in the first item of the charge, we did suggest that they have to meet and choose a chair by, I think, January 14th was the date. It doesn't mean they can't do it prior to that.
That's right.
So they could, if they could, I know a number of them indicated that they couldn't do a whole lot until January 1st, but they might be able to find one date that they could get together
Okay.
and work on trying to come up with a consultant or that. So that, it doesn't preclude them doing that earlier. It just means they have to do it by January 14th. So I guess if we're looking for a date, if we're looking for the date to have those unranked finalists to the select board,
Well, this was July 23rd to April 1st, so that's a month and a week, so it's 5 weeks. Surely we want to give them more time than that, since that was kind of an issue that board members were having. So 8 weeks, which would bring it to April 7th.
Yeah, I was going to suggest perhaps, I know it's a little shorter than that, but I was going to perhaps suggest April 1st. That would hopefully give us time to get interviews done by April.
That's only 6 weeks. They had 5 weeks last time. So that we're giving them 1 extra week. I mean,
I'm just trying to work a timeline that gives us an opportunity to have somebody hired with hopefully a start date of July 1st.
Well, April 7th certainly gives you that.
Well, April 7th is only less than 60 days from July. No, it's not. Okay, April 7th. I'm getting my dates a little mixed up. So why don't we go with April 7th? Does that board feel comfortable with that?
I don't know. I'd like even like Sarah said with the short term. I know that I was one of the people who thought it was rushed, so I would love to see even more time. Seeing the whole starting on January 1st and we need someone by June 30th or whatever. That's like kind of where we were at. We started July 1st and we wanted by December 31st. So I'm just wondering how different is this?
Well, if they got them to us by April 15th, that would hopefully still give us an opportunity to interview everybody and make a decision by May 1st, which is 60 days to July 1st. So would the board feel comfortable with April 15th?
Sure.
I mean, I don't really want to push it out much more than that. Then we're starting to run into time issues. Does that?
You okay with that?
I think so, I liked what you said where they can meet before January 14th. Mm-hmm. The whole going fast, not waiting is better because I would like to see more open application time. Because kind of like Bob had said and I had brought up before, he specifically said advertise in print, online, and in the journals. And I know I commented before that I didn't see it in the Beacon's online thing. So I think it needs more presence and more time if we're really trying to get the best applicant pool, like you had said too. We need more presence and more time. So are we doing things differently enough to get different? I know we don't control who applies and all that stuff, but isn't it that thing, the insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results?
Yeah, so do you want to make it April 30th? That gives them a lot of time, and they can decide when to close off the application period and all that.
Sure.
I would really, I feel uncomfortable with April 30th. I think that's less than 60 days. That's 60 days from July 1st. We won't even have interviewed anybody by that time. I would really like to give them an earlier date. If they feel they need more time, they could always come to us like they did last time and ask us to amend that date. But I think it's a priority that we have somebody in the town administrator's office by July 1st at the start of the fiscal year. And if we don't even set a cutoff date to get the applications to us until April 30th, that makes that very hard.
This is 60 days, Mark.
But then we still have to interview people.
We can interview them during the 60 days.
We can, but then when we decide to hire somebody, we still have to make an offer.
Mm-hmm.
We have to negotiate a contract. They have to accept that offer. So chances are they're not going to have 60 days if they don't get the recommendations to us until April 30th. We won't even have interviewed anybody by then. You see what I mean? They get the April. That's why I think if we set a date of April 15th. That gives us 2 weeks to interview applicants and set up a subcommittee to negotiate a contract with whoever whoever we choose. Hopefully, so they can, if they have to give notice, they can give that notice by May 1st, which gives us that 60 days from July 1st. So I guess that's why I'm trying to not go past that April 15th timeline. I'm really trying to get somebody in the office by July 1st. That's my my
I
goal.
see that. Mm-hmm.
So for the last charge, we asked them to choose a chair by July 1st and then submit the finalists to us by September 1st. Correct? So that was 60 days, right?
Yeah.
So now we're asking for January. We're giving them an extra 30 days, even if we went to the 15th, correct? So it's
Yeah, I think we're giving them enough time. And again, if they feel uncomfortable with it for one reason or another, they can come to us and ask for an extension. I guess it's just speaking on for myself. It's my priority to see somebody in that office by the start of the fiscal year. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Is there like a 60-day law or something? You have to offer someone a job 60 days? Is it like professional courtesy? Where's that coming from?
Well, most people if they have a contract with an existing employer, they have notice requirements in that contract.
Like a town administrator is typical?
Correct.
Yes,
It can go from 60 to 90 days.
The town administrator contracts that we've offered have that clause?
All of them do, as
Yes.
far as I know. So whoever it is would have to give their town 60 days notice.
So that's, okay, because again, I've never done this before, so that's typical contract stuff.
Yep.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking, like, I really appreciated Sarah stretching to the April 30th. I think she gets where I'm coming from. I really appreciate that. I understand you. What if we met in the middle? What, like April 23rd, they had to give us the names. Then we had to set interviews up with everyone. Like, we gave ourselves until May 1st. We had to have things scheduled. And then because we kind of set things up kind of short term this time. So I would rather give them as long as possible to search and then us a shorter time to be able to interview than give them less time to search and us a longer period to interview.
But it's not just us interviewing them.
Yeah.
We have to interview them. We have to set up a date to interview them. I mean, we just don't interview them the day after they give us the recommendations. We have to work with their schedule to set up an interview time. Once we choose a candidate, we have to set up a time to meet with them and negotiate a contract. So there's more than just interviewing them. That's why I'm trying to leave, even 15 days I think is pushing it a little bit, but I'm trying to leave some time in there that gives us time to interview folks. Who knows? If we get lucky enough to get 5 applicants, we may want a second interview. You may lower it down to 2 people and want a second interview. And then, like I said, meet with that candidate, offer them a contract, hopefully they accept it, and they give notice. So
Okay, so here's the thought, just thinking. When they were going through the process the first time, how much interaction did anyone have with Tom Walsh about the process? Because kind of where I'm going, we said they can always come back and ask for more money. They can come back and ask for more time. But I know that I know I'm not the only one who was caught off guard with, well, here's the 3, you only have 2. We had no idea what was going on. Is it possible to give them the freedom to do their job while also keeping us abreast of things? Let us know at the deadline, hey, we received this many applications. Can we just know more? So that way if we think, ooh, it's not looking like things are going great, then we can say, we can initiate do you want more time thing.
So part of the problem is that most of their meetings are an executive session to protect people's confidentiality, these applicants. So the answer is probably no. I mean, obviously, whoever is the new chair of the committee can always come to us and tell us what they can, but there's a lot of stuff that they can't. Like we can't when we have an executive session.
Well, like names and stuff, Bob's little odd anonymous numbers thing. I would just love to know we got this many applications. Great, keep us in the loop. That's awesome, you got a lot. Or, oh, that's not a lot. We kind of see what's coming down the road. If that's possible, then I know that I'd be more comfortable with a shorter deadline, knowing that, okay, the deadline's coming up, but they already got some great applications, or hey, they're going to interview this many people. Can we just get like numbers along the way? Is that disallowed? I guess you just keep abreast more.
Yeah, I think that would be up to the screening committee.
Yeah,
I think they
that's
could,
my feeling.
if they wanted to, but I think we need to sort of get back to where we are here and come up with a date so we can finish up this charge, and then we
are giving them an extra 30 days compared to the last process.
Okay.
So I mean it's not the same exact time frame, not the same exact time frame as the last search. They do have an extra 30 days, which I think is key.
Okay.
And that's why I agree with Mark. On the 15th.
So would the board be willing to include that as the last item, that the town administrative screening committee may present up to 5 unranked finalists to the select board by April 15th, 2022? Would that work?
Yep.
For the board? All right. So, I'm sorry.
We need a second and a vote.
Okay.
Oh, I make a motion to approve this charge as we amended it here tonight.
All right.
I'll
Is there a-
second that.
All right. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I just can't support it all.
Okay.
Lots
3 to
of
1.
good stuff.
3 to 1. So we have the charge, we have the guidelines, we have the timeline, and the possible use of the consultant was included in that as well. So I think that pretty much covers us for that line item. Does anyone else have anything else before we move on?
No.
All right.
I would like to request a 2-minute break.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Okay.
All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. And the next item on our agenda this evening is the town administrator update. Mr. LaFont.
Yes, I've got a few things for you tonight. Number one, in the next week and a half, I have a couple of meetings set up. One with a consultant and another one with our Gateway Health Group Board of Directors. What we're looking to achieve this year, 2 things. Number one, we're looking to bring in a high deductible plan, more like a private sector style health insurance plan, to really to run parallel with the current offerings that we have. Just doing some of the numbers that we've looked at initially is that we could save probably upwards of 20% per contract by going to a different, introducing a new plan design. Obviously, 20% per contract adds up very quickly, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you include what the school pays for health insurance, I think we've got about a $3.5 million overall budget for health insurance. That's big money, and we talk about what some of our needs are in the future, particularly with police staffing. These things go a long way towards achieving those goals. So,
could you explain that? What? These things go a long way.
Well, these types of initiatives and cost savings, you're talking about money that's fixed costs, recurring costs. If we can divert fixed cost money into our other staffing needs, that's the town's biggest staffing goal, because we need to deal with several police officers in the next 5 years. So
thank you. I just wasn't clear. Thanks.
I mean, it's going to obviously take a lot of education and work to try to get our employees to understand the benefits of these types of health savings accounts, because it is a little bit of it's more of a private sector type structure that most people aren't really aware of,
But aren't they also offered the opportunity to, if this exists, to go on their spouse's insurance?
Well, they can do that now.
Okay.
They can do that now, right? So certainly we encourage that. You're talking about $25,000 per family plan. The town's paying between 75% and 50%. Most of it's at a 75% level. So it's big money. It's big money. The other thing we're hoping to do, we've got probably one major community that we think this year we're going to be able to attract into the group. And can't mention names, but we have a group that was almost in last year. We have another regional school district that may be interested, and 2 towns. So it's possible in the next year or 2 we can double the size of this group.
So, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you one more time? How many communities and school districts are in the group now?
Well, right now there's 4. There's 2 regional schools and 2 towns. There used to be 6, but over the last several years that has dropped off for various reasons. So we're looking to get some of these back and expand beyond that. So
and that saves us money the more of them.
Well, it's stability. The larger your group, the more stable it is, and helps avoid peaks and valleys in ratings, because it's a self-insured group. The other part is you want the right groups. You know, bigger isn't necessarily better. Bigger is better if they're the right communities. So down here in southeastern Massachusetts, we have the further away from Boston you are, generally, the overall the less you pay for healthcare. So we don't want to be aligned with communities, say, on the South Shore, or towards even towards the Brockton area. Anytime the closer you get to Boston, the more you pay. So we want to have groups that are down here in this region who tend to get their health care more locally. So
that's why you started this group, to get us out of that Boston area.
Yeah. There was the dynamics then were somewhat similar. So, any other questions on that? Okay. The next item is 149 and 152 Plymouth Street. As of today, this 152 is a little bit easier. 152, as we know, is unregistered vehicles. As of now, this I believe the council is drafting a letter to go to the owner of 152. The question that comes up, and our building our zoning enforcement officer believes it to be particular interpretation, but the bylaw says, and again I don't have it in front of me, the zoning bylaw, that unregistered vehicles, there can only be so many, and they can't be in an open area. Well, what's an open area? Is something behind a fence an open area? Well, his interpretation, and he believes it's the case, and believes it's council's opinion too, that an open area is anything that's not enclosed in a garage of some sort. That's his interpretation. He's been through this before. So a letter, if it's not already drafted, it's going to be going out in the next day or two to 152. And that letter basically says the same thing the past letters have been from the building commissioner. You're in violation. This is the violation. And this time it says we're going to court. So, with regard to 149, there's one of the main issues here is obviously the condition of the structure, condition of the house. That's not an easy thing to deal with. When it's a Board of Health issue, when there's a health issue, I say it's easier, it's more straightforward, but you still may be in court for a couple of years to be able to get an order to demolish a building. It's a prolonged process, and as it should be. People have their property, and towns can't just go on their property and knock it down. So what a building commissioner has been advised is that council has pointed to a piece of the general law that allows for what's known as a board of survey. A board of survey has a town official, town surveyor, which in this case would probably be the building commissioner, the fire chief, and then a third party, disinterested third party that goes to, reviews the property, and then makes a recommendation back to the building commissioner as to whether or not the property needs to be demolished. After that report, council can then go forward with a court order to have that demolished, which again, now you're into appeals. I mean, there's no quick way to do it, but that's the process for dealing with a potential demolition of the property. So, because you can't really, fencing it in doesn't solve the problem. So that's something that the building commissioner is working on right now. So that's 149. Again, a little more complicated.
Can I just jump in?
Please.
I love this update. 152. You said the letter's going to go out saying we're taking you to. Yeah. What's the deadline on that? When's?
Usually it's 30 days. I don't have the deadline yet, but the last deadline ended the end of. What are we in?
November.
The end of October was the last notice given by the building commissioner to the owner of 152, giving them an opportunity to correct their violation. Town council has, in anticipation of non-compliance, council has drafted the next letter to go out, and if it's not out today, it'll be out tomorrow.
And it's like a 30-day.
Generally, it's 30 days,
Okay.
yes, to come into compliance. It's one of the things that's important is when you do get into a courtroom in front of a judge, a judge is going to look at how reasonable the town was in enforcing this, and a court will generally be favorable to not to the town necessarily, but to the homeowner, and I'm not, on a personal level, I don't know that I have a problem with that. I think we respect homeowners' rights as much as we can. So time is okay. So 2 weeks isn't going to look reasonable to a judge. 30 days is going to look reasonable. So, and I've told people this on other types of zoning issues and property issues that there's methods and means to move forward, but don't be in a hurry. These processes take time. If there's non-compliance and you have to end up in in a judicial process, it takes a lot of time. Most of the time, you get the letter and you say, oh, okay, I'll clean it up. But as you well know, that's not the way it always works. So 152 letters drafted. If Paul didn't send it out today, it's going to be out there tomorrow. 149, a little bit different, larger issue involved here, and of course the condition of the house, and the result of that, what that means to the neighborhood. And I know we've heard legitimate complaints about the condition, rodents, etc. That comes really from the condition of the property. So the property needs to be dealt with. That's the root of it. And I don't know, but I don't know that there's another means of handling those other issues without dealing with the building itself.
Okay. Thank you.
And the next matter, Route 44, we had another one of our meetings today, and the project continues to move slowly, to say the least. One of the ongoing issues that we had discussed today, more so, was once again fire suppression. The fire chief has been using a consultant to advise him on the needs that the department would have in terms of these fire suppression at this location. There's been some back and forth. The fire consultant has made some recommendations to the chief. Those recommendations have to do with need, not how we achieve those needs. Doesn't even begin to talk about capital needs of the town. So it is in a very early process still. The RDA hopefully within the next week or two, they'll have a consultant on board to help them do what they need to do. They've did an RFP, have some conversations with some national firms. I know they're meeting with somebody tonight that may be somebody who's known to some people here who may be able to fill that role for them. They also continuing. They have some web and other PR capacity, but they need information to be able to share at this point. So hopefully with a consultant on board, that will be helpful, but there needs to be more interaction between the developer and the town. And one of the other pieces, and then actually I'll pass the torch to Mark or Sarah here too, but we do have one of the part of the process is that the developer is funding a fiscal policy analysis, a fiscal impact analysis. They have a consultant. The consultant has working with us, but the consultant is paid by the developer. And as of yesterday, as of a couple of weeks ago, we were expecting that within another week or two we'd be getting there'd be some report issued by her to Hillwood. Part of our conversation today was to do what we can to ensure that any draft is actually sent to us first before there's any final final product. Now, what that product is worth, I think it's premature for us to say, because presumably that's part of the town working with the developer to get some mitigation from the town to offset any operating costs or capital costs. So to the extent that the report is paid for by the developer, it may very well be that, and we haven't really discussed this in any great detail, but it may very well be that we want to look between the RDA and the town, look at some sort of peer review. I don't think that would be unreasonable, but I think we're at a stage right now where it's a little too early to say that. And Mark, Sarah, do you want any comments?
I have nothing to add. I think you summed it up pretty well.
Yeah, I personally like the idea of peer review since the woman doing the fiscal report for the town is not being paid by the town.
Right. And again, we have every reason to believe she's credible.
That's
she's
not
done
bad at all. I think it's just a matter of...
Well, it's a matter of comfort. I mean,
Yeah.
she's done work for municipalities too, so I have every reason to believe that some of my peers have given me good reports on her. I say her company. But still, I think in terms of the comfort level for the town, some sort of peer review may be helpful. Anything else on that at the moment? Okay. With regard to our Montello Street Interchange project, and don't have much. I know Elaine has been participating in all the the pre-construction meetings, and as of the end of the month, we've been told that the storm has pushed back, the tree work, the erosion control work, drainage work. So that's all coming. That was all supposed to have started already. I think going back a few weeks, we initially were told that the project would be starting as early as October 15th. Obviously, that hasn't happened. So we'll see some activity when it does. But as of the moment, hopefully, in the next week or so, you'll start to see some activity up there. And town planner and town assessor. Town planner, the ad closes this coming Friday. I believe we have 5 applicants at this stage. At this point, it's premature for me to provide any my thoughts on who's qualified, who's not. I tend not to look at them until they're all in. So hopefully we'll be in a review process soon after this. We have asked, planning board chair as well as the chair of the RDA to participate in an interview process. As you know, that position services those bodies very much. So we certainly want input from the right people that this position services the most. Town assessor, we actually have, I believe, 4 we're interviewing. Elaine? I think we have 4 applications. Tomorrow morning we're interviewing 4 people. What comes out of that, again, is to be determined. As I think everybody, if you didn't already know it, you're learning that these municipal jobs tend to be pretty niche-y. So finding expertise in history and experience is not easy for these types of jobs. So hopefully we've got some good candidates to choose from. And the storm recap. I have asked Tom Walsh to provide a little bit, a fairly brief synopsis for me, and it's easier for me to just read it to you than try to paraphrase it, seeing where he took the time to write it. So let me read it to you. The town experienced hurricane force winds as part of the above event, October 26th to 28th, with the peak of the wind speeds occurring in the early morning hours of October 27th. Trees falling due to the winds created a major power outage, and at the worst point on Wednesday, October 27th, more than 98% of the town did not have power. Carver's EOC, which is Emergency Operations Center, activated at 7 a.m. on October 27th and began efforts along with all Carver emergency services to access the damages and assess the damages and open roads, working with Eversource. All of Wednesday, October 27th, was spent by Eversource working with towns to open roads and respond to emergency life-threatening situations throughout the region. No efforts were made at power restoration per Eversource. Carver Emergency Management did open a shelter at the Carver High School over the night of October 27th into Thursday, October 28th, with only 2 residents using the shelter, which was closed at 8 a.m. on October 28th. Power restoration efforts for Eversource began on Thursday, October 28th. Emergency Management was the primary agency who worked with Eversource throughout the power restoration effort. During Thursday and Friday, the communications between Carver Emergency Management and Eversource were very poor. Eversource staff assigned as the contact between Eversource and the town did not have sufficient knowledge of what Eversource crews were doing to provide the town useful information. For example, Eversource liaison personnel did not know how many crews were working in Carver. They did not know where crews in Carver had been dispatched to. They could not tell emergency management if the town's priorities were going to be addressed, and if so, when. They could not give estimates of when power would be restored in specific priority areas such as mobile home parks or critical infrastructure. Concerns were expressed to Eversource very clearly regarding these shortcomings, and there was some improvement on Friday, but it was late Friday, October 29th, before meaningful information began to flow to emergency management. During Saturday, October 30th, communications were good with a crew assigned to emergency management and many crews in town. The EOC was also visited by the Vice President of Community Relations from Eversource, who made it clear that they knew our concerns and pledged to do an after-action review to improve for future events. Power was, for the most part, restored by the end of Saturday. As has come to be expected, in my opinion, Carver Emergency Services, Fire, Police, EMS, DPW, and EMA handled the event in an efficient, professional manner and are deserving of high praise from our elected officials and senior management. I do not feel any further action by the Select Board is required at this time. I would like to personally thank the Select Board Chair, Mark Townsend, and Interim Town Manager LaFawn for their support and valued input during the event. I think that pretty much sums it up. I'm sorry. No, I do want to say, and I'm sure members of the board would probably want to say too, I think our first responders did a remarkable job during tough situation, tough conditions. Tom Walsh and Ken Morrison, our EMS, spent many hours, trying to get some information from Eversource, fielding calls from the public. I think we have to appreciate their efforts, but not. I think sometimes you overlook others, and in my experience, I think that we overlook our public works people. They, in my opinion, they are kind of the backbone of everything else that happens and can happen. I know on the first night they were 24 hours. They were completely overnight. Very little rest the next day when they were back out there again. So I think we have to we owe them quite a debt. Yes, they're working, but their effort was really remarkable. The other person I would like to recognize is our June down at our Council on Aging. She's down there making Meals on Wheels. When it's cold, there's no electricity in that building, and she's there making Meals on Wheels. So these are some of the sometimes we forget some of these people, and we very rightly focus on our first responders. They deserve our appreciation and respect, but let's not forget the others. So I think I've said enough.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, and I was going to say something during community announcements, but I guess this is probably a more appropriate time. It's just, I spent a lot of time in the EOC during this whole event with Mr. LaFawn and Mr. Walsh and other folks in and out, and I just can't recognize all our emergency service personnel at DPW. You're right to bring up June, because so many people really stepped up to help the town out during this storm, and I think it caught some people by surprise a little bit, the strength of the winds, and certainly, I mean, trees were down everywhere. I can tell you, working in the insurance industry, there were a lot of insurance claims. A lot of people had tree issues on their property, whether it hit their house or fences or whatever, and they were down everywhere, all over the road. And we are blessed in this town with great emergency service personnel. chiefs that know how to work together to accomplish things when they need to be accomplished, and we're very lucky. I'm not sure everyone recognizes just how lucky we are. So, just my thoughts. You know.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you both for pointing out our unsung heroes too. The DPW, and there's our Council on Aging Cook. I don't know how she did it.
Yeah, it was, and it just, again, these are the unsung heroes. I would agree. Things that don't just happen. People have to do things, and I'll tell you, I'm not sure I would have wanted to be working for the Public Works Department. My hat's off to them. So anyway, I've said enough on the subject. So.
I just want to interject one quick. I want to thank Rick, thank you as well for the updates that you gave the board all throughout the storm, and with Mark and everyone else. And again, everyone that was involved, Tom, Ken, the DPW, June, but I did appreciate all the updates.
Well,
so
my pleasure.
That was,
Thank you.
just want to recognize that as well.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on that, I had that outage map up. When I finally got internet back, I had that little outage map up refreshing all the time, and like our numbers weren't going down and all the other towns were, and I know that's, the crews, just be careful. But I knew that our people were out there all the time. If our number wasn't moving, I knew it wasn't due to our fault. And like Jim said, thank you for keeping us updated when I could finally get the updates. I appreciated knowing all of that. So, thank you.
Yeah, when the members of this board go to bed at night, you can feel comfortable that people who this town employs, first responders and PPW, you don't have to wake up at night in a cold sweat wondering if people are getting it done. They're getting it done. So my thanks and compliments to all of them. Now I'm done.
Just if you could just touch quickly on the Wade Street property. So
I confess I'm not well prepared to discuss that issue tonight. So I think while Mr. Belbin had brought that up at the previous meeting, I think some of O&M's ability to look into that got sidetracked, obviously by the storm. So that's something we'll have to talk about in a future meeting. All right. Anything else, Mr. Fond? I am done.
All right, thank you. Minutes license topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Our next meeting is on November 16th, 2021, and we have approval of the minutes of October 18th, 2021.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if we could, we put that off. I'm just one person, but I haven't had a chance to look at those yet. I apologize.
Well, that was just, if you take that was just our meeting with the Plymouth County. Actually, you weren't at that meeting. You weren't at that meeting. So, is there a motion? That was just our meeting with the Plymouth County.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And I'll abstain.
And an
because I
abstention.
wasn't there.
3-0 to 1. All right. Let's see. Select Board Community Announcements. Ms. Bogart?
I don't think so.
All right. Mr. Hoffman?
I was going to talk about the storm, but we already covered that.
Ms. Ewan?
I think I've said my.
Oh, wait, can I jump in? Because I saw you posted online. The storm debris cleanup thing, is the town's going to accept it somewhere? What did you put?
Oh, yes. Go.
What is that?
All you. Rochester Road.
Right there.
At the salt shed.
Yes.
Rochester Road.
Yes.
Right, can you give the
Right.
details of that? Because I don't, date, time, when?
I think
the
it's on the
details.
website.
It's on the website.
Yeah.
I believe.
It's on the website, on the front page.
Okay, so go to the town's webpage on the
Right.
the front of it, if you want information on when the town will accept storm debris.
And also your Thursday.
Oh yeah, the open space and recreation plan steering committee, longest committee name ever. We're having a public workshop on Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. at the fire station. Critical for public input because the open space and recreation plan needs to be current, and it makes the town eligible for grants, and it kind of plans the way the town looks and acts for the next so many years. So it's so important. Please come, and if you get a survey in the mail and you're one of those, please send it back or fill it in online. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jen, for that. Actually, if you get a survey, you can still come to the meeting. We'd love to have you.
All right. And let's see, select board notes. I just included one. I think we're all aware of the traffic issues that happened recently with regards to King Richard's Fair. So I did speak to Chief Dufley and ask him to speak to the other public safety chiefs as well, and come in to discuss the traffic and concerns related to King Richard's Fair. They're going to be at the next meeting, I believe. So
that's good.
just sort of,
If I may, though, Mr. Chair, I want to emphasize to people that since King Richard's Fair is a private organization, they're the ones who hire however many police officers. So I don't want people to think that it was the town's fault.
No, absolutely. But I think we it happened this year, but I think we need to, talk about what actions we can take as a town, working together with the fair to make sure it doesn't happen again. So anyway, they'll be coming in, I anticipate, at the next meeting. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.